There is a woman the Epstein case has never truly reckoned with. Not Maxwell. Not the named associates. Not the lawyers or the fixers. A woman who, by every documented account, was the single most important person in Jeffrey Epstein's final years, and who has never once given a full public account of what she knows.
He seemed to be kind of the center of the universe. He was so confident. And he was so attractive. And he was so incredibly smart.
He had a type, not just physically, emotionally. He found women in their most vulnerable moments, lost, lonely, far from home, and he remade them. He positioned himself as a savior while quietly constructing leverage over everyone around him. Karina Shiliak was 20 years old when she arrived in the United States, a dental student from Belarus. No money, no connections, no plan. She had come chasing a guy she met cleaning his teeth in New York. That didn't work out. And in that loneliness, that specific ache of being a young immigrant in a city that doesn't know your name, Jeffrey Epstein found her. She was on the phone with him less than 12 hours before he was found dead in his cell. She was the last outside voice he heard on this earth.
Then he told her he loved her, would not be able to call her again for another month, and to be strong.
And now, for the first time, there are reports that she has been asked about a name. A Hollywood name. A name that would make everything we thought we knew about this case make perfect sense. That name is what this video is about. To understand what Karina Shiliak allegedly knows, you have to understand exactly how she got there. Because the way it started tells you everything about how this machine operated. That email reads like a livestock transaction. Not the beginning of a relationship. But that is precisely what it was. Epstein didn't pursue women. He acquired them. He built a pipeline. And Karina, young, isolated in a foreign country, was exactly the profile he had spent decades perfecting his approach on.
He would ask me to meet clients, friends of his, go to lunch or go to dinner.
Do you think he was supplying you to these men to have sex with them?
I have to think absolutely yes.
She didn't even realize what was happening to her at first. He made her feel chosen, special, like she was the center of his universe. But she was currency, a product being supplied to powerful men on demand. Karina said almost the exact same things about him years later. In a 2012 email recovered by the DOJ, she wrote to him, "I love you. You're the purest man out of all men." This is what he did. He didn't just acquire bodies. He believed. He convinced intelligent, capable women that he was the best thing that had ever happened to them. And in Karina's case, he followed through in ways that made it nearly impossible to walk away. There are nearly 9,000 emails between them in the DOJ released files. 9,000. This was not a casual connection. This was the most important relationship in Jeffrey Epstein's final years. Here is where this story shifts. Because Karina Shiliak was not just a girlfriend. She was an organizer, an insider, someone who, by every documented account, had access to everything. She arranged his travel. She organized his household. She communicated with his staff. She knew his calendar, his contacts, his preferences, his network. And in one email that researchers have flagged as significant, a message that has quietly gone viral in Epstein investigator communities, she mentions taking a trip to Bali, then Kuala Lumpur, then Tokyo. Someone in Epstein's circle responded asking how they could help her in those cities. People close to the case have suggested that could be a joke. Sarcasm. Dark humor between insiders. But researchers who have spent years in those DOJ files point out something harder to dismiss. Her level of access, her knowledge of Epstein's specific preferences, his contacts, his calendar, meant she was uniquely positioned to understand not just who he was involved with, but who he was connected to. Especially in Hollywood.
Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it. And provided the way for you to to have $1 billion and not create a fantasy island type environment has not existed throughout history.
Epstein didn't operate alone. He had suppliers. He had a network. And that network extended deep into Hollywood, into entertainment, into media, into the kind of people who could make careers happen and make problems disappear. The files confirmed it. Thousands of redacted names. Hundreds of thousands of documents either blacked out or sealed entirely. But Karina was in those emails. She was on those flights. And according to multiple researchers who have combed through the DOJ releases, her name appears in correspondence that touches the entertainment world in ways that have never been fully explained. There are now reports spreading across the Epstein researcher community and beginning to leak into mainstream coverage that Karina Shuliak has been approached to speak, and that in private communications, possibly through intermediaries, she has allegedly referenced a woman, a powerful woman, a woman whose career was built entirely on daytime television warmth and likability. That name is Ellen DeGeneres. Before we go further, let's be absolutely clear about what the documented record already shows, because the receipts exist without a single rumor attached. Then, in late 2024, following Donald Trump's election victory, and increased pressure for the Epstein files to be released in full, Ellen and her wife Portia de Rossi reportedly left the United States entirely and permanently. They moved to rural England, placed their Montecito estate on the market, and according to multiple publications, told friends they had no intention of returning.
She was quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
Well, this is why I say release the Diddy files.
Yeah,
Release
so,
the Diddy
you know.
files. Come on, Donald Trump, we want to know whose name.
So maybe she's hightailing out of there before all that is thrown at her as well. But
Taken individually, any one of those facts can be explained away. People retire from television. People move countries. These things happen. But the question being asked by researchers right now, the question that connects Karina's alleged private disclosures to the documented timeline, is this. What did Ellen know? And how did Epstein know her? Here is what we know about how Epstein actually built his Hollywood connections. Not rumor. Documented. He didn't walk up to celebrities and introduce himself as a predator. He positioned himself as a philanthropist, an intellectual, a man with access to the world's most powerful circles. He donated to universities. He hosted dinners with Nobel laureates. He made people feel that association with him elevated them.
Jeffrey phoned me yesterday and asked if I'd show a friend of his around Bear Stearns. His friend arrived with his father, both from Switzerland.
Maxwell recruited hundreds, but Maxwell was only one recruiter. The documented record confirms that Epstein had multiple people working for him in this capacity. Maxwell was caught because of the scale of her operation. Others were never caught. And here is where Karina's alleged disclosure becomes explosive. Because if her private communications are authentic, if she did in fact reference a Hollywood figure by name as someone Epstein maintained a specific kind of relationship with, that would mean one of his entertainment world connections wasn't just a name on a flight manifest. It was someone actively embedded in the network. Someone whose platform gave direct access to exactly the kind of talent, aspiring performers, and young people that Epstein's operation depended on.
No remorse, no voice. Gillian has no soul. And you know yourself what I've been through trying to take her down. And the reason why I've had to go through that is because she's a dangerous human being. She will reoffend, and reoffend. These people never stop. Ever.
The victim speaking those words was describing Maxwell, but the structural point she made applies to the entire network. These weren't accidents. These weren't isolated incidents. This was an organized system with roles, with recruits, with rewards, and Ellen's documented proximity to that world, her friendship with Diddy, her relationships with Hollywood power brokers, her show's reported toxic environment that kept staff permanently silent, raises questions that the internet is now refusing to let go of.
No. There is no list. There is no, I'm not aware of any blackmail. I never heard that, I never saw it, and I never imagined it.
Flight logs exist. Bank records exist. 9,000 emails between Epstein and Karina Shuliak exist. Surveillance footage existed until it was reported missing. But no list. No blackmail. She never imagined it. Let's talk about what happens to people who get close to exposing this. Ghislaine Maxwell, despite being convicted and sentenced to 20 years, is reportedly living in conditions that no other federal prisoner experiences. A personal laptop, bottled water while other inmates drink from the tap, meals delivered to her cell, a personal umbrella for daily walks in the Texas sun.
Do not discuss her, do not put anything in writing, do not talk about her on the phone, do not make any trouble regarding Ms. Maxwell, or we will move you to...
She is being actively protected. And when she sat for her DOJ interview, she was remarkably consistent. She denied everything. Cat Williams, who has been the loudest and most consistent voice naming names and identifying power structures in Hollywood, has made clear that speaking out carries a price.
The Illuminati, find out what the fuck they got going on. Get the information. Run back to y'all. Tell y'all everything I know. That's my job. But I don't know how many more times I'm gonna be able to sneak in there.
He said that on the record, knowing exactly what it might cost him. Now think about Twitch. Stephen Boss, Ellen's executive producer, one of the most visible, beloved figures associated with her brand. He died 2 months after Ellen left for the UK. His note, according to reports, alluded to shame, to silence, to feeling unable to stay part of something he could no longer tolerate.
Left his home the day before he took an Uber to a motel about a mile away. At the motel, he switched his phone to airplane mode so no one could reach him.
That is the behavior of someone who believed that what they knew, and what they had stayed silent about, was already too much, and that nothing they could say would fix it.
In business, nothing is coincidental, or you would be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money. When these rappers get killed, not incidental. Somebody made $100 million.
Let's return to the center of this story, because everything circles back to her. Karina Shuliak spoke to Epstein less than 12 hours before his death. She was the last outside voice he heard. His emergency contact. His confidant. The person he wanted to marry. The person he left his entire financial empire to. And she was in those 9,000 emails. Every arrangement, every trip, every favor, every name. Researchers who have spent months in the DOJ files describe her as the most important uninterviewed person in the entire Epstein case. Not Maxwell. Not the named associates. Her. Because Maxwell was publicly managed by lawyers, by prosecutors, by decades of strategic positioning. Karina was quiet, private, and according to every documented piece of evidence available, she knew everything that mattered in those final years. The reports now emerging suggest that through a private intermediary, not a press statement, not a social media post, she has allegedly referenced a specific entertainment figure. A woman whose entire public persona was built around being warm, funny, relatable, and safe. Someone who, it is now being alleged, had a very different relationship with Epstein's world than her public image would ever suggest. She is still out there, living in a Manhattan apartment owned by Epstein's brother, a building his own black book described as the apartment for models. She graduated from Columbia's dental program. She reportedly still has access to funds from the estate. And she has never, not once, given a full public account of what she knows. People close to the investigation say that will change. The question is when, and who she names when she does.
I do not believe he died by suicide.
Which means somebody silenced him before he could talk. Which means the names he knew, the real names, the Hollywood names, the names Karina allegedly heard him mention across 9,000 emails, those names are still out there. Still protected. Still watching the files drop. Still waiting to see if someone with direct access to Epstein's world decides it is finally time to tell the truth. Let's bring this all the way home. Jeffrey Epstein's pattern was never random. He found vulnerable women. He built loyalty through money, access, and manufactured love. He positioned those women as bridges to a network of powerful men. And he protected the most powerful names in that network with extreme care. Karina Shuliak was the most important person in his final years. She knew his calendar, his contacts, his preferences, his flights, his arrangements. She was in 9,000 emails. She was on the planes. She was the last voice he heard before he died. And now, for the first time, according to multiple reports, She has allegedly pointed toward a name inside those files. A woman whose departure from the United States, whose shutdown of a multi-hundred-million-dollar show, whose flight to rural England before the files dropped, whose closest associate went permanently silent in the most permanent way possible, fits the pattern with a precision that coincidence cannot comfortably explain.